Here we go. We got C-SPAN pulled up right here. Ladies and gentlemen, as you are tuning into this segment, what can you see? Motion to adjourn. Republicans 219, Democrats 212. One Republican voted no, but it looks like the yays have it. And our lazy members of Congress who did nothing but sit there all day are voting to go home without getting the job done. Well, I guess to be fair, even those brave We the People votes of the Republican Party, like Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Biggs, etc., Cloud, I think Clyde as well, a lot of people, there's like 20 people, 21, they're also voting to go home. So fine, whatever. I suppose if it means more gridlock and nothing's happening, I guess the argument is it's a good thing. You know, I don't know. Luke seems to be pretty happy.
It's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing because the longer Congress fights with itself, the less they could fight against the American people. And, 11 times rookie numbers. 1856 took 133 rounds of voting over 2 months to elect Nathaniel P. Banks as Speaker of the House. Those, again, let's try to beat those numbers here. We're not far away. We got to keep pushing at it. And I think the longer Congress just gets in battle with itself, the more beautiful it is for everyone else, the more freedom we have, the more liberty we have, the less government we have, which is overall good.
I want to get this article up real quick. McCarthy nominated for 11th ballot in the longest House Speaker contest in 164 years, loses again. It feels so good.
I think that the longer it takes, how did you phrase it? The longer it takes, the better off we are.
Yeah.
It kind of exists until there's a diminishing return. Because if it happens for, say, 7 years, then all of a sudden we have no government.
Yes, Ian. Yes,
No.
Thank you.
That's not
You're
good,
speaking my love language.
The cartels
here.
are running the southern border.
The cartels already are running the government, especially in Mexico, and they're connected to the intelligence agencies. And if you look at how the cartels got their start, they wouldn't be as violent and as prolific if it wasn't for American government and the Mexican government running protection rackets for them and giving them a lot of money.
As nice as it is to, fantasize like, oh, what if the government didn't work for 2 years? The next time it's time for Ukraine to get their check so we can do money laundering for everybody that works for Northrop Grumman in Congress, takes money from them. The next time they want to cut a check to Ukraine, the Democrats and Republicans will do a deal. So I'm enjoying this time. It's a lot of fun, but we have to acknowledge the Democrats and the Republicans, they're on the same side of every major issue, and they all want the money at the end of the day.
That's why I'm wondering, do you think there's any value to, if it keeps being gridlocked and they can't figure it out, at some point, should it go to a general election? Like, we're voting for our president, we're voting for our speaker. It doesn't have to be a congressperson. It probably shouldn't be a congressperson. Just some American that wants to step up and run and do the job.
It could be anybody. They've officially adjourned. They're all going home. They're going to come back on January 6th. And I wonder what tomorrow is going to be like.
January 6th, huh?
Yeah, January 6th.
It's a historic day.
That's like Democrats 9/11.
Yeah,
really
I think some windows got broken that day, right?
Yeah, is it really?
A guy with horns walked around.
I think a police officer shot an innocent woman too.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
Ashley
I don't know.
Killed her.
Yeah.
Shot and killed her.
Yep. January 6th. It's so funny. This is the one story that just shows how split the country is. If you're on the left, some of these people said things like January 6th is the new Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
That's how crazy they are.
Worse than 9/11.
But then on the right, you have people saying this is the new July 4th. Like, we're going to celebrate. We're going to have a good time.
That's also very dumb. I mean, I think if people want to celebrate it, I roll my eyes at it. The people who are saying it's like Pearl Harbor, that's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, for real.
I can get why people are like, there were people cheering for January 6th, but I'm like, you guys, you got to understand. It's one thing when people stand defiant and like this. Matt Gaetz is like, we're blocking Kevin McCarthy. This is a tangible political conflict. It's like, what I mean to say is there's actually repercussions for what's happening right now. January 6th, like, nothing happened. Windows got broken. Yeah. People got hurt. Trump supporters got hurt. There was no political gain. It actually just benefited the machine. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm like that the whole thing was dumb.
One of the things that nobody's talking about is the pipe bombs on January 5th. The FBI discovered these pipe bombs that were planted on January 5th. And right now, Jacob Wohl is putting out information that the government is interested in. Like, wait, okay, fine, you're investigating the story, so we're going to look into it too, as to where these pipe bombs actually came from. They're finally looking into it, thanks to independent journalists like Jacob Wohl. And it's just amazing how many people are still locked up in a gulag in D.C. for what? For going on a self-guided tour? The government let them in. They waved them in. The videos are there, waving them in.
Let's make, I like the nuance. A lot of people walked in from the back entrance where the cops wave them in and open the door. And because of this, there was a direct acquittal. I think more than one. There was a direct acquittal of a guy on all charges because there's a video showing the cops waving him in. Another guy got charges dropped, but was still charged for other reasons. there was because like he still ended up doing something that was criminal, but the trespass was like, no, the cops did wave him in. What happens is the staunchest people on the right said, oh, the cops let him in. Well, there were people fighting on one side, smashing into cops and fighting their way in. On the other side, the cops opened the door. Both things happened. You know what I mean? Like the riot was bad, the violence was bad, but most of the people who were walking around, they had the doors open for them. The people who were fighting with cops were blocked and struggled to get in.
It's also interesting to see that the FBI a couple days ago announced that they're going to be doubling the reward money for information that's going to lead to the arrest of the pipe bomber that, of course, laid these pipe bombs on January 5th. Very strange that this guy's not caught here. There was a lot of involvement with the intelligence agencies here that, of course, it's still being kept away from the general public. But in the new $1.7 trillion omnibus bill that was just passed, there was a provision there that's going to double the DOJ funding when it comes to prosecuting people for January 6th. And it looks like they're going to try to arrest double the amount of people that they already have for the events that, of course, happen on that particular day. So it looks like this is something that's not going to be ending very soon. I think we need the tapes released. I think this is also one of the things that's being negotiated right now with Kevin McCarthy, as even Tucker Carlson on Fox News came out a couple days ago and said, hey, if Kevin McCarthy releases the January 6th tapes, then people will back him and support him and vote him for Speaker of the House. This is what, according to Tucker Carlson, is being debated right now at the House and is one of the key provisions behind keeping Kevin McCarthy in that position of power.
What tapes?
The January 6 tapes of exactly what happened there, and then all the information that came forward. There's still a lot of surveillance footage that is being kept away from the general public. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of evidence still that the American people have not seen that would probably paint a picture of what happened there in more detail than what we already know.
I ran a poll in the chat. Is it funny that McCarthy lost 11 times? 95% yes.
I voted yes.
You voted yes. Yeah. It is funny.
I was like,
it's funny.
It's funny, strange, maybe. Funny, haha.
I don't like these people. Luke makes a really good point. There's countless hours of evidence from January 6th that actually, I'll throw it back to Ian's point the other day that when he hit the nail on the head with the hammer saying sometimes no investigation is better than an investigation, because if McCarthy does a sham investigation with a limited budget, it will convince people that that was a real investigation. They'll say, look, we investigated all that stuff. We found nothing. It's like, yeah, you found nothing because you gave him 10 grand. Like, you need a speaker who's going to go in and say, we're going to get a legitimate hearing, a legitimate commission with real money behind this. Otherwise, you get McCarthy in. I think you were right when you said that.
I think you want independent commissions looking into it too. However, who's going to appoint the independent commission? Who are they? Who was their father? Who's their second cousin? Who's paying them? I don't know. But the idea that the government would investigate itself always makes me
they have before. Let's have some nuance here, because I agree in your sentiment and probably said your exact words before. But when it came to the church commissions, we found out a lot that we would have never found out if it wasn't for brave members of Congress coming forward and saying, hey, let's really look at what the intelligence agencies are doing here. And then we found out a lot of their bigger secrets and a lot of how they were manipulating the corporate media when it came to the consensus of our society. So I'm on the other side here. I want more investigations. I want the government investigating itself. I want the government fighting itself. I want the government spending time looking at each other rather than looking at the American people. On average, Congress passes about 85 bills a year. Hopefully we could stop that number and make sure that they pass less bills with this deadlock. And one could only dream, right, guys?
What do you know about the lead up to the Church Commission? Are you familiar with how they got that going?
No, I do not. I just know that it was eye-opening commission investigation and congressional hearings that were absolutely game-changing when it came to actually seeing what was happening inside of the United States and just how far and just how unaccountable some of these intelligence agencies have gone and strayed away from their original purposes of fighting actual evil.
It looks like it was called, the Church Committee was like the general term, but it was really called the United States Senate Select Committee to Study Governmental Operations with Respect to Intelligence Activities was the actual committee's name. Started in 1975 and investigated the CIA and NSA. What else?
I actually wrote about it in my book. I kid
awesome.
you not.
What'd you write about?
Well, just the fact that they have people embedded across the news media, like the New York Times, Time Magazine, all of these different institutions admittedly had CIA operatives embedded within them. So when you're watching corporate media, if you're not watching something independent, you're basically watching the CIA giving talking points to people that just repeat whatever they tell them.
Let me tell you how it works. You get 20-something out of college journalists They're making a garbage salary for a digital rag. When all of a sudden, they get this big story. CIA source says Donald Trump, bad man. And then everyone sees this small story, all these other outlets, New York Times, Atlantic, et cetera, Washington Post, and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Is this legit? They reach out to the editors and they're like, yep, we have a legitimate source. We vetted this. And they go, this is a huge story. This now young person is getting their name said everywhere. How did they get this source in intelligence agencies? How did they get this all this information? More stories come out. More stories come out. Eventually, the companies come and say, you got good sources, man. Come work for us. We'll give you double the salary. Then they start getting mentioned. Then they start getting asked to come on TV. Now they're on TV saying, our sources in the intelligence agencies are saying these things. And they're like, wow. Because the intelligence agencies select someone, feed them stories, because they know a young, desperate journalist will run whatever they say because it'll build their career for them.
Let's call it what it is, grooming. The CIA is grooming young people to become journalists.
Yes, that's a 20 right there.
That's one way that they're doing it. In other ways, they just have, CIA
Rumors.
employees also work as the editors and decide what story gets published and doesn't get published. And both ways are true. And I think it was, what was his name? Ufket, a famous German journalist that actually blew the whistle about how the intelligence agencies were coming to him with pre-written stories that he literally just had to put his name on. He also died suddenly of a heart attack a couple years ago as well. What was his full name? I think you remember.
I think it's
everybody's
Olfcott or
posting
something like
20s
that.
for
I
you.
literally have that in my book too. I was looking for it
Udo
right as you were
Olfcott?
talking.
Yes. There you
Udo
go.
Olfcott is his name.
Yeah, award-winning, famous German mainstream corporate journalist just came out and said, hey, most of my top stories weren't even written by me. They were written by the intelligence agencies, and I just put my name on
Free
it.
money and no work.
Wow.
You find the right person who's got no scruples and they'll take the deal.
And no soul.
Have you guys ever discussed on this show where the origin of the term fake news comes from?
Yes, it comes from a think tank that Eric Schmidt financed with Hillary Clinton during the 2016 presidential election.
The first Washington Post
And I actually
story.
confronted Eric Schmidt on this. I was like, Eric Schmidt, you were a part and fundraised money for this think tank that originally created this term and then weaponized it against your political opposition when you were working and campaigning for it with Hillary Clinton. And he told me some very bad words. You can still see that video on YouTube for some
He told
strange
you
reason.
some bad words.
He said some bad words.
What were you saying?
The first Washington Post story that dropped the term fake news before Trump then took that term and stuck it right on CNN and all the actual fake news.
Amazing.
The first story in the Washington Post calling people fake news, it was talking about We Are Change and about 100 different other media
Yep,
outlets.
yep.
We are the origins of fake news, my friend.
Well, they used it against us.
I know.
They weaponized it.
You
against
should
us.
clarify that statement.
Oh, excuse me. That sounds a little bad out of context. Yeah.
Right.
But them trying to come after us and label us with what they are, which is what they always do.
Yep.
Like accuse your enemies of what you were doing. They put out the fake news. So they want to call independent journalists, legitimate people, they want to call us fake news. So the origin of that term is them trying to vilify us, demonize us. Thank God Trump took that term and stuck it right on them.
It's very much the modern conspiracy theory term. The term conspiracy theory was invented, from what I've heard, by the CIA to make people that were saying that Kennedy was killed by more than just Oswald. There was something, they were saying there is a conspiracy out there. They say, no, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're just theorizing about conspiracies when in fact they were conspiring. At least allegedly, it just came out the CIA was involved, according to Tucker Carlson. He had some evidence on it. I didn't see the episode, but
Tucker actually,
duh.
I got to give a shout out to Tucker because I got this tweet. Tucker Carlson says, Dan Crenshaw is a committed neoliberal. He's a tool of his donors. He's hawkish on Ukraine's border, but indifferent to ours. And Dan Crenshaw knows that Kevin McCarthy is the least conservative speaker he is likely to get ever.
And by the way,
Wow,
Crenshaw
Tucker.
did call people terrorists. I listened to the video.
Yeah.
It could be taken out of context because if you listen, we should maybe listen to that clip if you guys have it.
But he said you can't let the terrorists
And
win.
what he was doing was, it was like that was the mantra that he was repeating, like a military doctrine, like you don't negotiate with terrorists kind of thing. He just like plugged in a mantra, so it was kind of like he wasn't saying they are literal terrorists, but he used that doctrine so you could see how people will think he is.
Fox News called them insurrectionists. Did you see the Fox News anchors? They were literally saying the people not voting for Kevin McCarthy, insurrectionists.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.